Welcome everybody to the last lesson 2023, and yeah, I haven't done a video in a while, but in any case, yeah, I haven't done a video in a while. So let's talk about certain things that we're working on with the last lesson. And as you know, we already have a full chart of the core curriculum that I've outlined. No changes have been made to that since 2022. But what I do want to go over with you is now that that core curriculum is fully laid out, I want to have individual videos to help explain exactly how to train and develop your skills from that. So in the first core curriculum, the way or the physical way of actually understanding Yichikin Ma, I want to go over and spend some time with you on that. So there's tons of videos I think I've done over the past. There's been slight modifications here and there regarding it, of how to open the stance and why you're opening the stance and all the details behind the four motions to do that. So this video is not about that, and more of understanding what we need and why the stance is so important, and the physical aspect of it is what I'm trying to work on. So let's go over that aspect. So this video, I guess you can call, is the answer to why, right? Answer to why, and how to look at the stance. And as a Wing Chun practitioner, your goal is to get the stance, right? It's not you can learn a stance in 2 minutes. I show you the stance, you work on it, you practice it. But that is not the goal of just simply memorize and do and then fall on your ass. To get the stance to get the power and the skill from the stance. And let's look into details as far as how to get that and why we need to do that. So let's look at an aspect of the stance in a little different way. Some of the things that are lacking, and why you do the stance in the way you do, is the awareness, right? The control, and actually the value or meaning of what you're doing when you work on the stance. So what do I mean by awareness? So let me give you some examples of awareness first. When we open up the stance, it's based off four motions, right? We're basically from here, motion number 1, 2, and then open up. So there's 4 individual motions that are happening, and the thing is, when I say awareness, I'll give you a story. A while ago, I studied some Thai language. And for almost a month, we went over, I guess it was pronunciation. And not to go too much into detail, but the example of the sound, like here's the example of how to say ma. And there's 5 tones in Thai language. And it sounds like this, ma, 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 ma. So those 5 tones, I'm not even sure you can even hear that, because it took me over a month of repeating that over and over, because I could not hear the difference, especially in regular language discussion in Thai, what the difference is between one ma, ma. There might be a tone, it's just so minute, I'm not aware of it, I'm not aware of how to catch it, that it just goes beyond my head. And almost a month I spent working on detail of that. And why is that so important? Because ma has the meaning of basically mother, and ma, I believe, it has the meaning of dog. So if you pronounce the tones incorrectly, you may be saying, oh, that's calling her mom, but you're actually calling her dog in Thai, okay? Now, how does this have any relevance to breaking down the individual motions that we have? So think of it, you're looking for certain things. There's 4 things that you're trying to capture when you open up the stance, and notice we're doing it in sections. Why? Because it's like a car. You see a car, you go in the car, you can drive the car. But each individual part in the car has a function in it. And when you look at the stance, you're supposed to feel certain things, right? Like if I can feel the stretch in the neck and the tuck in and the knees going in slightly and then the feeling the connection to the ground, you're supposed to feel that, but you can't feel that in the beginning. It's like, for example, most people go like this to do that, and they just copy the motion, but they don't know how to feel it. And it's not their fault that they don't know how to feel it, because the practice brings about awareness. When I feel a stretch in the back of my neck, what's the awareness of that? What muscles do I need to engage that? How much muscles do I need to engage that? What muscles do I need to control that? And that's individualizing that one part. So, for example, if that's that one sound, I may not be able to hear it or control it, or I may have it, but I'm using too much of it. So notice I have to sectionalize first the stretch. And then the other one is the tuck, right? The next one is the tuck. But that tuck, am I over tucking? Am I under tucking? Am I tucking and losing my center of gravity from that? And these are things like we're putting that you have to separate first. If you were supposed to, if you were a conductor, for example, the general basis of a conductor, you have different instruments being played. And as a conductor, you can hear all the different instruments that's being played, who's out of tune or who's out of whack or whatever. But imagine you just open up your stance like this without doing the individual motions. How do you know which muscle to control to get that stretch? How do you know you're tucked in? And because of that, that's why you have to break down each individual motion first by itself and see if you can actually control it. And then from that awareness then is like, oh, I can feel that now. You may feel it, but you may not know how to control it yet, right? That whole grasp is being able to feel that and have that awareness. Or I can feel the tuck in, or I can feel my feet or my center of gravity based off that. So notice you have to break it down individually first to be aware of it, to get used to it, to know it. Okay, so that's what when I say about awareness, that's what I'm talking about. People have like a low sense of awareness when it's like, oh, I can open a stance, I'm here. Just because you're doing it doesn't mean you can actually achieve what the goal is of that stance that you want overall. Okay, so that's what we're talking about when it says awareness. You break down each individual one. So I want you to look at that when you're doing the stance. Look at it and think to yourself, okay, can I actually feel that? Can I actually control that? Or what muscle am I using to do that? And see if you're simply at the point where you're here and you do the motion, but you're doing it, but you don't feel what you're supposed to feel. Okay, so that's what we're talking about, awareness. The control factor, right? The control factor. When we say control, right? If I can hold my stance like this is great. It looks like I have my center of gravity in place. But how much control is necessary to do that, right? Because when we talk about stance, we're talking about units of muscle that's necessary to hold it. If I need 10 units of muscle, for example, let's give it poundage to give you a value. 10 pounds to hold this stance. That 10 pounds may be like, yeah, I can hold this structure stable for 10 pounds. But what if I only need 5 pounds of it or 3 pounds of it to hold the structure? Well, that means what do you need to be able to control it? How much do you need to be able to control it? And that's one aspect of the control, but the other aspect goes back to the overall story of like awareness. You're controlling the stretch, you're controlling the tuck, you're controlling the knee, and you're controlling your center of gravity to the target. That's individual. Control then also covers the aspects of having each individual ones work together at the same time. Okay? So it's one thing to say, how often do you do this? You feel your stance feels good, you're here, and the adjustment you're just doing individually. I'm stretching my neck. One affects the other. It's like just correcting someone in the band. Oh, the guitar guy is doing this off tune. You make the adjustment. No, everyone always has to make adjustment every single time that's occurring. So this adjustment here may require an adjustment here and here and here. One affects everything else. And that control aspect not only is how efficient you can control it, the least is better, but also how well you can control it all together as one. Okay, and finally, the last aspect that I want to cover over the physical is basically the understanding of value. Value, the meaning. If I say, oh, the stance is important. Oh yeah, okay, the stance is important. It has no meaning to you, and it's not your fault because it's like there's no meaning, there's no value associated with that statement, right? Like, for example, if you want to learn, and I go back to language, if you want to memorize a word and you're like, okay, how do you say dog, or right? Or inu in Japanese, or perro, or aso in Tagalog, or whatever. You say it over and over and memorize it. But that's just memorizing the word, but there's no meaning to it. But if you'd use like it in a sentence, or an everyday aspect, then now it's like, oh yeah, that actually means something. So actually, you see the stance, I tell you it's important, but to most individuals, you see the stance and it's like, oh, you're just standing, your center of gravity is there. Yes, I get it. It is not the blame of, I don't blame the individual because he doesn't understand the value of it. Even for myself, when I told you, it wasn't until the video in 2004, 4 years later, that I was like, oh shit, this is really important. This is why I'm losing. It's not going faster or whatever kind of timing is involved. It's my stance. The stance is not to that level. So I worked on it, I understood it, and then now, because I understood the value of it, I reference that all the time. It's not, oh, how well can I punch? How well can I punch based off how I'm doing the stance, right? At the end of the day, when you're training in Wing Chun, your goal, before technique, before anything else, is to be able to stand. That means stand in the overall aspect is have your center of gravity not locked in place, but in your control. So you're never dependent on the other individual structure, okay? So in that aspect, hopefully this is the first I'm gonna cover regarding the core curriculum of stance, right? From that aspect, as far as, okay, what's a physical? You guys already know, I've talked about why chest gets small, belly gets big, you feel the first stretch, the tuck-in pushes the lumbar out, the knees go in, and then you feel the connection to the ground, right? That's, you know the detail of that. But now, hopefully, you understand the importance of not only having the awareness. If you don't have the awareness, you have to work on it, right? And it's not massive techniques or things you have to practice. Silam Tao, punch, and stand, basically, right? That's how you basically master and understand the value, understand the awareness and control of it. Then the control aspect is getting it to function all together as one. And finally, the final one is basically the meaning. You gotta find meaning and value to it, because it'll be a very sad awakening when you find, oh, well, okay, my technique feels very good. Your technique versus someone with a good stance, you will quickly realize how easily it is to be bitch when someone has a stance and actually is using structure versus technique. All right, hope this helps. Later, guys.